It turns out the Stasis Titan can do some very cool things. Okay, don't leave the video. That's the only pun. That's the only pun, I swear. What is up, guys? It's your boy, Still Sick Cacus. No, I'm not talking slowly and lower on purpose. I have no choice. It's literally the episode of Family Guy where Peter gets sick and Lois thinks his voice is sexy. That's a whole nother topic, but today we're going to be showcasing an incredibly powerful Stasis Titan build. Yes, I never thought I'd see the day where I was purposely hopping on a Stasis Titan, but here we are. And that's because due to some recent buffs, Stasis Titan can now do some of the most powerful things available on the Titan class. So what are they? Well, let's get started. But first things first, I've partnered with Mobalytics, your source for Destiny 2 builds. Simply click the link in the description down below to see this build laid out in an easy to read, easy to understand format, including dim links. After you've watched the video, of course, so you know exactly how this build works. Alright, so the buffs that made this build so darn good came out with the Ashen Iron Major Update. In fact, some of you watching may remember my live stream from that release day where I was testing this build. So I've been playing this build for several weeks. You've probably seen it being used in the background gameplay. It's about time I make a darn video on it. So here's what happened. For the Stasis Titan, Shiver Strike got a buff for both Stasis and Prismatic where it returns a ton of energy in PvE, so you can use it as like a movement ability now. But then things go crazy. For the Howl of the Storm aspect, which our build is based on, this is essentially the Stasis version of Consecration, slide and then melee to make a bunch of crystals. It now grants 2 melee charges. So just like why Consecration popped off on Prismatic, because you'd have multiple consecrations because of your Frenzied Blade having multiple charges, you now get that on Stasis. But on top of that, they've changed the Stasis crystal spawn pattern and added 4 more crystals, so way more crystals. And it now slows enemy players instead of freezing them in PvP to help balance for that. Cryoclasm was buffed as well, not too important for our build. And then finally, what is extremely important for our build is that the Tectonic Harvest aspect was also buffed so that Stasis Shard creation no longer has a cooldown in PvE. And this results in the following utterly insane combo. It means that you can use a Howl of the Storm, you spawn a bunch of Stasis crystals, as you can see, and simply in the process of these crystals being destroyed by, exploding off of an enemy, you shooting them, whatever, you are going to get enough Stasis shards to fully recharge your melee. And there is no cooldown, which means the next melee, and the next melee, and the next melee, and the next melee, and every single Howl of the Storm melee you do, as long as you destroy those crystals, you will refund that melee in its entirety. There is no need for any sort of exotic that gives you melee energy back. You are getting all of your melee energy back because of how many Stasis shards you are making, because of how many crystals you are now spawning. Additionally, this means that it requires no kills to refund your melee. That's right. Simply, if you whiff, if the enemy is just before you're about to use it, your teammates steal the kills, you just make a bunch of crystals, you can simply shoot those crystals. They will still make Stasis shards, guys. It is crazy. So we really have infinite uptime on Howl of the Storm, especially because we have a second one, while we're kind of waiting to get those Stasis shards from the first one to recharge it. So we can just chain Howl of the Storm over and over and over again. That is, again, the basis of this build. So let's dive into what we're running with this build to get the most out of that combo. So for the subclass, Glacial Quake, Rally Barricade, but that doesn't matter too much, you'll see why, Shiver Strike, and then Glacier Grenade. Obviously more Stasis crystals means more Stasis shards. Then of course we are using Howl of the Storm plus Tectonic Harvest. That is the main combo. The Stasis Consecration and then getting your melee back simply with the Tectonic Harvest aspect, guys. Additionally, this is going to give you Frost Armor for picking up those Stasis Shards as well, giving us a huge degree of survivability. Then for the fragments, we've of course got Whisper of Fissures to increase the damage of our Stasis Crystals when they explode, when they shatter. Then we've got Whisper of Shards. Shattering a Stasis Crystal temporarily boosts your grenade recharge rate. Yeah, so basically we have infinite grenade cooldown as well, because like we are simply shattering so many Stasis Crystals, our grenade has, you know, massive uptime as well. Then I really like Whisper of Conduction. Nearby Stasis Shards track to your position. This simply lets you kind of play without having to worry about going to collect your Stasis Shards, because that's such a big part of our build. It's nice to have them just come to you automatically while you're worrying about another group of enemies. And then finally, guys, we have Whisper of Rime. Your Frost Armor has increased duration and maximum stack count. This is incredibly important because Frost Armor is kind of our main source of damage reduction and survivability on Stasis, so having even more of it, having it last longer, is quite good. Now, as for the exotic armor piece, this is gonna be a weird one, guys, but I'm going with the Icefall Mantle. Yes, bit of a meme exotic for years, but it is incredible with this build. Now, why? Well, it says that while you have a Stasis super equipped, which you obviously do, Rapid Stasis Final Blows grant Frost Armor. You heal a small amount whenever you gain Frost Armor, and it replaces your class ability with a burst of Stasis energy that freezes nearby combatants, slows nearby opponents, and grants you increased Frost Armor. So, what that all actually means is that you can use your class ability, and you're going to see it in the background gameplay. You send out a burst of, you know, freezing energy, and you gain a ton of health because you instantly go up to the max Frost Armor stacks. So the reason we're running the Icefall Mantles is simply because survivability was the one thing that this build kind of lacked. Now, that's kind of a misnomer because it does have a ton of damage resistance because of the Frost Armor, but it lacks healing. So having Icefall Mantles, giving all of those Stasis Shards you're collecting, you know, have a bit of healing, and also giving you an emergency heal button. You know, you simply pop your class ability and you heal basically up to max. It was so darn good. Now, I should note, you might be going, well, what about stuff like the Worm God Caress? You know, we're running a melee build. Well, what about the Syntheseps? And these are a bit weird because, you know, you're not really doing melee damage per se, you're just making a bunch of crystals, and the damage comes from those Stasis crystals exploding. Now, from my testing, as you can see in the background gameplay, I was getting higher damage numbers when Syntheseps was active from these Stasis crystal explosions compared to when they weren't, right? So, you know, that is why we are running for our stats a little bit higher melee energy, because it seems like that does affect the potency of the Stasis crystals. Now, you can absolutely not do that, right? I have another version of this build right here where I was just running basically hundreds across the board, and we just say, all right, we're getting our damage from the Stasis crystals. This just gives us, you know, everything. This is like the maximum cooldowns on everything we want. That is really up to you. You're getting a little bit more damage if you know, swap to the Syntheseps, you know, or have more melee energy. But again, this build is so versatile when you do just have the, I'm just going to spam all my abilities nonstop and the damage is coming from the crystal explosion. And that is where the Icefall Mantle really fits in. It's super synergistic with this build and it gives you more survivability. Frankly, part of the reason I'm running it is simply because I found I didn't need the damage. The damage is good enough just with the Icefall Mantles, and especially for what you're doing, which is like, you know, right now farming portal activities, farming Festival of the Lost stuff. You don't need boss DPS, right? This build is phenomenal with the Icefall Mantles for just farming portal activities because it'll handle anything a portal activity is going to throw at you. Now, aside from that, guys, the weapons we are running. So, first of all, we have the Mint Retrograde. Why? Because it's arguably the best overall weapon in the game. Now, you could go with a wave frame grenade launcher as your special, like this explosive personality with auto-loading. Now why? Well, it's because wave frames are incredibly good at shattering a bunch of stasis crystals. You use your Howl of the Storm, you make a bunch of crystals, you shoot one shot of explosive personality, and all those crystals are gonna explode. But it turns out that the Mint Retrograde, simply dragging your crosshair along a bunch of crystals, and you're going to see this a ton in the background gameplay, it is also pretty darn good at making stasis crystals explode. And so for me personally, yes, a wave frame is a bit more synergistic, but I just want to use the best gun in the game, right? And so the Mint works perfectly with this build. Again, very good at blowing up stasis crystals. After that, we are running a Yeartide Apex, simply because there's a lot of synergies within your artifact around, you know, solar weapons. We can get Radiant for getting precision hits, and Heal Clip, again, plus Chaos Reshaped, a good source of healing as well. Again, damage resistance, your build has a ton of, but actual healing, you need a little bit of help with. That's why we're running the Yeartide Apex. And then finally, guys, we're running this Salvation's Grip. This, when it got its catalyst here, it became so much better. It's another source of frost armor, and I mean, this just works so well with our build because it's another source of stasis crystals, right? For some reason, if you mess up your howls and you don't have your melee, just shoot the Salvation's Grip, blow up the crystals, and that's gonna spawn stasis shards for you, which is giving us healing, which is giving us damage resistance. It is so good with our build, guys. Now, after that, for the armor mods here, for the helmet, we are running the Solar Strand Dual Siphon because we're using all those elements, as well as the Harmonic Siphon for our grenade launcher. And then we are just running the Power Preservation because why not? Like, a lot of these don't really work, you know, hands-on with our build, like, or you're getting a ton of super energy just for shattering the crystals, trust me. So, you know, having those crystals, again, the way it's coded, they're coded very weird, so a lot of the stuff doesn't work as a traditional melee build. So, after that, though, we have, of course, again, the Icefall Mantles. I think it really brings the build together, offers so much survivability, just makes this build so easy to play. Melee Kickstart, because why not, right? Again, gonna work really well with our build, just spamming non-stop melees. Then we have Impact Induction and Momentum Transfer, just because we are causing damage. We are causing a bit of damage with those melees, and we're getting more ability regen from it. Then for our chest armor, damage resistances based on whatever you are doing. And then after that, for the legs, so we have recuperation and then double elemental charge, guys. Every stasis shard you make can trigger elemental charge. So the combo of elemental charge plus, like we saw earlier, melee kickstart is actually redonkulous. Like, you are just gonna have so much armor charge all the time because elemental charge is converting the, like, you know, 9 stasis shards you make after using your howl into your armor charge, right? So that is like the main engine of this build as well, just so we can spam our melee even more if that wasn't enough. And then, guys, after that, we've got distribution, as well as, well, 2 distributions actually, and then a powerful attraction, because we are using our class ability quite a bit, because it's just like a heal button now, which is very, very nice. And finally, for our seasonal artifact perks, we of course have Flame, Fiber, and Freeze for our helmet mod. Then we've got one with Frost. This is going to give our grenade launcher better reload speed when we have Frost armor, so all the time. Then we've got Threadling Proliferation because we're using the Mint Retrograde. You're going to spawn a ton of Threadlings, especially with Pack Tactics. This is very effective. Of course, we have Fever and Chill so that we're getting Radiant from our SMG. After that, we have Cauterized Darkness. So everything's going to be stasis debuffed, literally everything. So our solar SMG will simply do more damage to them, can really help in shattering, guys. Then you've got energy acceleration, again for our micro missile Mint Retrograde. And finally, of course, we have Radiant Shrapnel as well. We're Radiant, you know, so we're going to be making those scorched projectiles appear, but also Shield Crush. For the first part mainly, when you have Woven Mail Frost Armor or a Void Overshield, your melee recharges faster and deals increased damage. So yes, this is going to be active with our build. We have 100% uptime on Frost Armor all the time, trust me. So this is going to be crazy. And also because we are getting Radiant from our SMG, from Fever and Chill and stuff, that is also going to trigger grenade regen as well. Overall, guys, this is just spam Stasis crystals, the build. You have so much uptime on your abilities. Like, you were just Howl of the Storming like over and over and over again. It constantly recharges. Like, I cannot believe how fast you get it back with like nothing invested. Like, normally I'd have to put on a melee, I'd have to use a Monte Carlo or something to be getting melees back this fast. No, nothing. You just get it back automatically because of those stasis shards, because they now spawn infinitely with every stasis crystal, 0 cooldown, right? And then if something happens, you don't have that, you're spamming your glacial grenade, which is more stasis crystals, stasis shards, and then you are getting your melee back because of that. Then you're getting more grenade because you're blowing up all these stasis crystals. Like, and then your class ability is freezing everything around you and healing you and giving you max frost armor stacks. You are just spamming non-stop stasis stuff. It is so crazy. And honestly, this build just makes me want Bungie to add more stasis exotics for the Titan. There's not a ton of them, so yeah, if they add an exotic that makes your stasis crystals do more damage or something, oh my god, dude, this build is just gonna go bananas because it's already pretty darn bananas. Definitely one to try out, guys. Super fun to use when playing pretty much whatever in the portal. Guys, that is it for the video. Hope you enjoyed and found this informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus, that is linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.